You can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stuntz. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out. Yeah! 40. It is very close. 15, 10, 5.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like this podcast. I'm your host, Blake, and normally with me is my brother, Brooks, but he is feeling under the weather today. No worries, though, because I will not be by myself. Before I get to that, I just want to remember to follow us on X or Twitter at @CHusker_corner or on Instagram, Cornhusker Corner. And just remember, like and subscribe to the channel. All right. So without further ado, we got a little bit of a treat. And this was preordained before my co-host got sick, but he's one of his friends. I'll let him do his own introductions, but Colorado fan. So joining the show, but for our first ever guest. So welcome, Greg.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be on the podcast.
Did you know you're our kind of first guest?
I did not know that, but it's good to know. More pressure, right? Yeah, no better game to have a first guest for than Colorado, Nebraska, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, before we get into get game talk and everything like that, just kind of go through like how you became a Colorado fan and kind of your fandom going from there.
Born in Fort Collins, Colorado, ironically, home of Colorado State University. Had two parents that went to Colorado State University, but living in Colorado, you're not really a Colorado State fan. They're few and far between. Both my parents went to Colorado State. They're both huge CU fans. My dad would root for CU in private while he was at Colorado State. It's ingrained in the culture there. CU is huge and everyone roots for it there. Mm-hmm. So that kind of got passed on to me through my dad throughout the years. And hopefully I can keep passing that on to my kids whenever I do have them. But yeah, I don't know if it's at Nebraska levels because I know you guys are pretty crazy, but it's definitely huge.
It's a different animal. Yeah, no, for sure. So growing up, I guess you did know like kind of the relevance of Colorado-Nebraska game, especially people our age. It was a little less so than some of the older generations, but it can get pretty intense at times. It had some really great wins on the Nebraska side with, just the dominating like Sioux performance without 1 year. And then you have one of my earliest memories, 2000, I guess it was 2001 when Eric Crouch was the quarterback and we ended up going to the national championship, and our lone loss was an absolute ass kicking by Colorado. Yeah. And that was my first really introduction to losing as a Nebraska fan. So it's a feeling that I've really come to embrace and have to feel a lot, unfortunately. But I do remember that as one of like the key memories. So I always think of that every time we play Colorado. Let's get into it. So last week, I wasn't shocked about what happened last week, right? But I was shocked with how it happened because just from my prognosis, like TCU is a little overrated. They had so many people they had to reload from that team last year. Everyone was kind of talking like they were the same team and that Colorado didn't stand a chance. And Colorado wasn't the same team. They reloaded and had so many other guys. So I always kind of figured it was going to be a closer game. I didn't expect Colorado to mesh as well as they did. So like just before we get into like our game, like what were your thoughts after like watching and looking at that game?
I texted my dad before that game started and I said, I want us to cover the spread. I want us to lose by, right. Obviously the spread was 20.5, 21, depending where you were looking. And I said, I would be thrilled if we cover the spread. As the game went on, obviously it was more, hey, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can do this. I was still hoping, maybe we can just keep it close.
Yeah.
But as the game continued and kept going, it was clear. I really felt like Colorado was the better team. And I felt like they could have won by more than they did. If anything, I think it was closer to being a Colorado blowout more than it was to being a Colorado loss. If you look at, they had Travis Hunter dropping a quote unquote drop. It was a diving catch. Travis Hunter, they had two missed throws in the end zone, including the diving catch, one that Shedeur Sanders underthrew him a little bit. Mm-hmm. They had quite a few missed opportunities where they could have blown that game open early. Yeah. They had many opportunities to extend their lead or even win by more than they did. So it's hard to not come out of that game feeling incredibly optimistic. Absolutely. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't surprised. I mean, if you look at the Las Vegas win total, they put on Colorado, it was 3.5 and it started out 5.5 and got bet down to 3.5. So obviously I mean, the sharps in Vegas weren't expecting much, and it was hard to expect much, especially early in the year.
Yeah.
You're dealing with pretty much a completely new roster, a completely new coaching staff. It's hard to expect them to come off to a fast start.
It was really great. And how that the team meshed together. I mean, just knowing that we were going to play, I probably would have felt a little different about it if I didn't know that we were going to play this next week. But, I was definitely rooting for the team not to look how they did. And I do think TCU, they played right into the game plan that Coach Prime and all them put together. They wanted to keep it fast. They wanted to keep their offense off the field. And that's what they did. And they were just able to really wear down because they know they can run with anybody. They didn't want it to be a defensive slog, which is not really in their wheelhouse, just with the personnel they have. So, and transitioning into this week, I think it's going to be a little bit different of a monster. Now, I'm not as optimistic as my brother, just in general. He's a big drinker of the Kool-Aid, as we like to say. But just in general, the defense that they're going to be seeing this week, Big Ten defenses in general, Big 12 ain't known for their defense. They're known for their high-flying offenses, and if you can outscore, you're going to win. So lots of, hills to climb this week for the team down in Boulder, or up in Boulder. Yeah, so what are your thoughts of Nebraska? Were you able to catch some of that game?
Yeah, I watched a majority of the second half. I went back and rewatched a majority of the first half. I pretty much watched the whole entire second half. I mean, I hate to say it, but it was a typical Nebraska game over the last about 2 years or so. I have another good friend along with Brooks, who's a Nebraska fan, and both of them throughout the game were texting me saying, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. Yep. And it finally came. I mean, it really comes down to Jeff Sims. If he doesn't make that bonehead mistake at the end of the game, I mean, they're driving down to kick a winning field goal there. So, I mean, they were a 7-point underdog going into that game for something to really have a chance to win, and should have won.
Yeah.
I mean,
it could have really just how that defense played and where the offense was during some of those turnovers. We could have easily won by 3 scores, that interception right at the half and the fumble, obviously. And then just the lack of downfield or passing game in general. Again, it's something completely different that Colorado is going to have to see this week in comparison, because I think for matchup wise, what's the spread right now? It's last I checked, it was like 5 for Colorado.
I think it's down to CU 3.5, 3 or so.
Yeah. So I do think right now that is fair, because I mean, if you look at the media perception, because of how they had hyped up that TCU game and how much of it was it was a loss and everyone was just counting it like that. It is understandable the hype afterwards, and they looked the part. I mean, Travis Hunter is a dog. That dude is like, can he do that all year? That's really, really hard. I hope he stays healthy, because I don't like to see any player get hurt. But maybe he like rolls an ankle and just out for a week. My selfish self. If you look at them, they do have a lot to prove, and I think Nebraska right now, in the type of culture that they're trying to set up with running the ball, winning in the trenches, controlling the line of scrimmage, those things that Colorado didn't get tested on last week, So I do think it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge, but I'm interested to see it, because both of these teams still have a lot of question marks. It seems like every single college football season, you have that one team that like wins a game they're not expected to. They have all the hype in the world, and then sometimes they had a good week, and we'll see if that's the case. I don't think it is, but yeah, we'll see. What do you think about that? Like, as far as like the hype goes and what you saw on the field?
I mean, it's really hard to judge. I'd like to think I go back to something I saw on Twitter before the season started, that someone tweeted, Nebraska fans are raving me saying they can't wait for Colorado to go 7-5 and the Dion experiment be a fail. And they said, you have no idea how over the moon we're going to be if we go 7-5 this year.
It's been rough for Nebraska fans, but even just sort of like national relevance, we've still had that. I feel, at least like the past couple of years, Colorado has just been like ever since Mel Tucker got hired away, it's been like they disappeared from the national picture. And then we were notorious for the stuff you don't want to be famous for, like the 1-score losses and all that. Yeah, it's been a rough go to be a Colorado fan. So just like Nebraska, but it's one of those things that like we don't know still. But you want to buy into it, just because like if we had won last week, I would have been like kind of riding high, just because it was one of those things that was like a culture shift moment. And I feel like that's what you guys had last week. You had like a culture shift, and you had that little bit of like, you can hope, and then what? Do you win? So we had that hope. We just didn't get that win. So if we were riding that, I would be a lot more excited for the game. But as it goes, I'm just going to go into a couple of Nebraska's keys to victory here. So I've kind of alluded to this a little bit, and I'd be interested to see your takes on this as well. But I think that if we really control that line of scrimmage and kind of hit you guys where you guys are a little bit lighter, which is in those trenches, I think that there's a really good chance to it be that 3-5 whatever point game. And I think that that's how they are going to have to approach it, because just man for man on the outside, the skill positions. I don't know if you saw, like, one of our starting receivers blew out their ACL this week too. Yeah. So on a position group that we need the most help in, he blew out his ACL. So what that means for us is, like, young guys have to step up, but it can't be the same game that we played last week. So Jeff Sims, he has to hang on to the ball. He can't just throw it away, like, right into the other team's hands, staring down the receiver. Can't have fumbles. Our penalties, while frustrating, especially that one right before half, it was a false start to, was just going to be a touchdown because you have a 6'4", 230 quarterback, just he falls over and it's a touchdown. So we had a false start there, but that's the only penalty I can remember and then thinking, like, that was really bad. The other ones are just first game jitters, I think. So if we limit those, I think that we can really, really keep it close, because that's where the mismatches are that we have, is the big guys up front. What do you think?
I tend to agree with you. I think, again, to go back to that betting aspect, you kind of want a quote unquote under game. If you're really a Nebraska fan, you want to control the line of scrimmage, like you're saying. If you Colorado kind of has a weakness, it is on that line of scrimmage. Their skill position guys, I think, can at this point match up with anyone almost in the country. It looks like they're very deep there, not deep at all on the line right now. I mean, even if you look at last week's stats for Nebraska, I mean, they won total yards. Turnovers obviously is what killed them. Time of possession was pretty even. I mean, they should have won that game. If they can control the ball, hold on to it, kind of play their same style of game as they did last week without the turnovers, I really feel like they can keep this game close.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just going to be like a track meet, which again, we can't keep up with. I mean, we do have some, like, really, really young guys, like true freshmen that do have a lot of speed, but then you have true freshmen that have a lot of speed, not a lot of experience and everything. So let's go into this. I worded it this way, kind of tipping my hat to what I think my final prediction is going to be. But how does Colorado lose? Because you have, like, keys to victory, but I really think this is Colorado's game to lose. So how do you guys lose?
I would, if I had to pick a way that Colorado loses, I would probably have to go with getting in Shedeur Sanders' face, kind of making him escape the pocket. One thing he didn't really show in that game against TCU was kind of an escapism. His running ability he didn't really show that the same thing kind of aspect that he had at Jackson State. So if they can kind of force him out of the pocket a little bit more, maybe get him under a little more duress, maybe we see more erraticism, because what we saw in the TCU, he sat in the pocket, a lot of short, quick throws, and when it was needed, kind of opened it up more and went more down the field. If they can take away those short, quick throws, maybe kind of do a little more press, despite that's not totally what I'm hearing for what Nebraska's going to do, but if they can kind of force him to sit and read the defense more and maybe force him out of the pocket, force him to show something that we didn't see in that TCU game, I think that's probably their best chance. Hold on to the ball. Can't emphasize that enough, because Colorado's defense definitely showed some holes there. So I think Nebraska can definitely put on some points if they, definitely more than the 10 they put up last week. Yeah. If they just hold on to the ball and run their offense. So just hold on to the ball and maybe against Shedeur Sanders' face, which is totally possible. That's probably Nebraska's best path to win. Yeah.
I mean, TCU, for the life of me, I could not figure out why they weren't putting more pressure, because every time they did, the offense went backwards and there was a punt. That happened like maybe 3 drives. That was about it, I think. But every time they, like, got pressure and did stunts and really got people in his face, I mean, you're right. I mean, he got away, like, in extended plays sometimes, but most of the time it was either a sack or a throwaway. And, that's what you do to a quarterback that's hot. You get pressure on him, get somebody in his face. So that's really what I was going to say too, because if you just let him sit back there, he will be able to read the defense. Doesn't matter what kind of defense you're playing. It doesn't really matter. You can read it, you'll be able to beat it. Heck, Mr. Minnesota quarterback guy, Calamacate, or whatever his name is. I'm just going to say his first, Athan. He was able to read our defense and find some holes. And unfortunately, what I saw is a lot of the short game was working for them. So when I saw Colorado getting a lot of those outs and those quick hitters, I was just like, gonna have to fix that. But for sure, I think that's one of the things, just get into the face. If Colorado has given up a couple sacks in the first half and that pressure starts to build, especially home opener, new era, era, like the Sanders era, there's a lot of pressure on Colorado right now. There's no pressure on Nebraska, really. There really isn't, so that can all mount if people start to get frustrated and you're not able to initiate your game plan. And that all starts on the line of scrimmage, and it starts with getting Shedeur on his bum. So, all right. So final prediction. What do you think the final score is going to be?
I've kind of gone back and forth on this throughout the week. I'm not sipping the Kool-Aid as hard as a lot of Colorado fans are. So right now, I've heard a lot of people say a 3 or 4 touchdown win by Colorado, which, like I said, I think it's sipping the Kool-Aid a little too much. I think Colorado does pull this out. It's a close game throughout, but I will say Colorado wins by a touchdown in the first home game at Folsom Field with Deion Sanders as head coach.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing Nebraska and you bet that you're going to win by a score, that's probably a good bet. No, so I think you're right. I think that again, Colorado has to be careful to not fall into that trap of riding their own hype, because they were unappreciated all off season. It was still going to be like a 2-3 year thing, and they beat somebody they weren't supposed to. So they might come out and that's where coaching comes in. If they come out flat and, believe in all that hype, then, they're going to come out flat. And Nebraska is definitely going to have a chance to really smack them hard, which is something that they didn't get hit in the mouth a lot last week. There was a couple lead changes here and there, but there was never like a blow that TCU dealt them that you're like, ooh, let's see how they come back from that. So if Nebraska can limit the big plays, control the line of scrimmage, and really put Colorado in the backseat of the game with the time of possession, I do think that it would be a 1 score. But that being said, I'm going to say it's going to be, because there's so many questions on our offense right now. So I'm going to say it's going to be around 28-14, but there's 2 late of those are late scores. So it's close throughout most of the game, and then they pull away a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see. I like playing teams that have such rich history. I don't enjoy losing to those teams, and that's been the past couple of years. Like, we were at the Oklahoma game last year, right after our coach got fired. It was just such a morbid affair. And then the fact that they went out the rest of the season and only won 6 games. Oklahoma did. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. But I'm really hoping that we start to turn the tide here this game.
I'm kind of curious to hear, because I've been going back and forth with Brooks about this, what you think the fan distribution will be. I've told him I think Colorado fans will show out with Deion, but he seems to be convinced there's going to be a sea of red there.
Well, listen, like last time that we were in Boulder, it was kind of embarrassing. Well, let's just say it sounded like a home game, looked kind of like a home game for us. It was a little embarrassing now. And then we gave up a 17-point lead, and then it was embarrassing for us. But I do think that they've put more of an emphasis on it this time. And so it's not going to be that bad. But Nebraska fans are very, very well traveled. And it does not matter what kind of team we have. Husker fans show out. And I don't think it's going to be the same amount that it was last time. But you'll definitely notice. I'll just say that. You'll notice the Husker fans there. Just because I've never been to that stadium, but just how it looks. It's not as big as like Memorial or Stadium. And so it can look a little disproportionate if you have the right amount of fans in there. But yeah, no, it should be interesting to see, especially since that's been such an emphasis, like from like almost the second week he got hired. Yeah. Deion was talking about that. It was pretty interesting.
I'm glad to hear the players. I mean, they haven't really been around for this rivalry for a long time, but it seems like that hate is still there. Yeah. I saw a good quote from a Colorado player. I can't quite remember who it was. It's like someone asked, have you found a reason to hate Nebraska yet? And he said, nope, but I hate them.
Yeah. No, it's like me, like, because I'm an Eagles fan, right? So like I hate Dallas, and I didn't know why I should hate Dallas until I looked into why I should hate Dallas. It's one of those things, especially if you haven't grown up in it. You're like, oh, I'm supposed to hate them. Okay. But now I hate Dallas. I feel like I have to really hammer that home now. I don't like Dallas.
To be fair, I think everyone besides Cowboys fans hates Dallas.
That's true. So, well, hey, I do want to really thank you for joining. I'm really bummed out that Brooks couldn't join as well. I know that he would probably move heaven and earth if he could to talk Husker football. So that just kind of goes to show how bad he's actually feeling. But I do want to thank you and appreciate your time. We'll see how that game goes on Saturday. Big noon kickoff. So we don't have to wait that long.
Yeah. Of course, thank you for having me, and I hope they find a way to keep this game going, even with staying in opposing conferences. I hope this rivalry finds a way to stay alive throughout the next decade or two.
Yeah, same. Yeah, college football is better with rivalry games for sure. But anyway, all right, peace. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, interesting takes there from Colorado fan. Again, bummed my brother couldn't be a part of it, but we're both going to watch in eager anticipation to see if our offense can get that monkey off their back and actually drive down the field and score more than one touchdown. But that is going to be it for us today on Cornhusker Corner. Just remember to like and subscribe to the channel. We like doing these. So just like and subscribe. You can do it on Twitter at @CHusker_corner or on Instagram, just Cornhusker Corner. And just always remember that there's no place like this podcast.